Welcome to Secrets in the Silence. If you enjoy powerful stories about courage, honor, and respect, please hit that like button and subscribe right now. Today's story will show you what real strength looks like. Let's begin. Nice scars, tough girl. Didn't know Camp Harrison had beauty treatments. Like a sharp knife, the voice cut through the morning air. Corporal Morrison stepped back into line, speaking loud enough for everyone to hear. That was his plan. Staff Sergeant Lisa Carter stood alone on the dusty training ground. Her gray tank top was soaked with sweat. Dirt covered her skin like a second uniform. Dark bruises covered her arms and neck, not from one bad day, but the kind you collect over time. Her hands were cut up, and she walked with a slight limp. But she stood tall and proud. Behind her, the unit watched. Some laughed quietly. Others stared with cold amusement. She was new here, the only woman assigned to Alpha Company in 3 years. No welcome, no background story. All anyone knew was that she had been transferred here by special order. Whispers had spread through the barracks the night before. Some said she was recovering from an injury. Others claimed she was just another desk worker trying to prove she could keep up with real soldiers. Lisa remained silent. Didn't move. Even without blinking. This bothered Morrison more than he wanted to admit. How many sit-ups does it take to break an arm, Sarge? He continued with a lazy smile. Or did you fall down the stairs again? The others laughed, the kind of laughter that tests limits. None of them really knew her. And when people don't know the truth, they get brave. What they didn't know, what none of them even thought about, was that this woman didn't ask to come back. She volunteered. Not because she needed to prove herself, but because she had a debt to pay that only she understood. From a small hill beyond the fence, Colonel Michael Barnes stood watching. His face was hidden by his hands behind his back. He knew the moment she stepped out of the military truck that morning that this wouldn't be easy. Lisa Carter never looked for attention. But wherever she went, her history followed. Still, he didn't step in. Not yet. She stood in the heat, silent and still. The sun caught the half-healed, but still angry-looking, bruises on her neck. She didn't defend herself. Didn't look away. Because Lisa Carter knew something the rest of them didn't. Respect earned in silence lasts longer than applause. She gave the impression of having been through hell. Some of them were already betting she hadn't made it back whole. The scar under her left eye caught the morning sun thin, uneven, almost like surgery had left it there. Her shoulders were square, but her stillness wasn't pride. It was something quieter, deeper. Then the colonel spoke. His voice was calm, controlled, dangerous. It carried across the field like a warning wrapped in gravel. Call sign Ghost 7. Everything stopped. The side eyes, smiles, and laughter. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Corporal Morrison blinked, half confused, half annoyed. Ghost what? Colonel Barnes stepped down from the hill. His boots hit the dirt with slow, careful rhythm. His arms were no longer behind his back, now at his sides, hands gently closed into fists. You just ran your mouth at Ghost 7, son. The field didn't just go quiet. It got tight, like every man standing there had just been pulled into something they didn't understand. Somewhere near the back, Private Kelly, a kid from Texas with 4 older brothers in the service, let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. No way, he whispered to himself. That's her. Next to him, another soldier's eyes went wide. They'd heard the name in briefings and stories passed around like ghost tales during night watch. Ghost 7 wasn't just a soldier. She was a legend. When discussing the worst nightmares from the battlefield, a name was whispered. A woman who went silent on radio for 6 days, only to come back dragging a wounded teammate through enemy fire. But that was a story, an exaggeration. It wasn't this woman, this bruised, silent figure standing in front of them with dust in her hair and dried blood still on her collar. Was it? Barnes stopped just a few feet from Morrison, looking him over like a slow-forming storm. You don't need to understand what it means, he said. But you better remember it. Behind Lisa, one of the older instructors slowly stood at attention. Not because Rule said he had to, but because something inside him said he should. And for the first time since she arrived, something changed in the group. Recognition, not just silence right now. If you're already hooked by this incredible story of hidden courage and military honor, smash that subscribe button for secrets in the silence right now. Trust me, what happens next will give you chills. Let's continue. Have you ever heard of Operation Dark Mountain? Barnes's voice was calm. Too calm. Like the quiet right before something breaks. At first, Corporal Morrison did not respond. He was trying to figure out if this was still about him. But Colonel Barnes wasn't looking for an argument. "No, sir," Morrison finally said quietly. The colonel turned slightly. Not to Morrison now, but to the rest of them. To the field that had gone dead still. His voice didn't get louder. It didn't need to. 3 years ago, an 8-person reconnaissance team was dropped behind enemy lines in the mountain region. Cold, dangerous, hostile territory. They were sent to confirm intelligence about a weapons storage site we weren't supposed to know about. He paused. While saying it still hurts, it's not for drama. What should have taken 72 hours turned into 10 days. A few soldiers quietly moved. They were attacked on day 3. 3 died immediately. 1 bled out before dawn. 1 went missing and was never found. The wind picked up gently, but no one moved. That left 3. He let the silence settle. 1 had metal pieces buried so deep in his chest he could barely breathe. Another, their communication specialist, was knocked out cold in the explosion. His eyes returned to Lisa. She hadn't moved, not once. And the last one, she was shot through the leg. 2 broken ribs, no painkillers, no rescue helicopter. Just 15 miles of ice and darkness between her and maybe staying alive. His eyes stayed on Lisa. She was somewhere else now. Back then, there was no formation, no lines, no Morrison running his mouth. Just blood in the snow and the sound of her own breathing getting shorter every hour. And a voice barely alive behind her, "If I pass out, don't stop. Just continue walking." She had. Even when her vision blurred. Despite the fact that she had to crawl the final 500 yards with him on her back, because standing had become impossible. Lisa's hands were clenched so tightly that they were cutting into her palms as she stood now in the desert sun. Not from anger, but because even now, even here, the memories hadn't let go. Barnes's voice cut through her thoughts. On her back, she carried the communications specialist. Dragged the wounded one on a stretcher made from broken pack straps and a snapped rifle barrel. No backup, no air support. Just determination. The unit was silent. But Lisa was back there, in the cold, with death following every step. "Do you believe she returned for glory?" Barnes asked the unit, his eyes moving across their faces. "She came back because not everyone who walks out of fire leaves the fire behind." And for the first time, even the boldest among them looked away. Because what they had just heard wasn't a war story. It was a warning and a wound that never really healed. For the first time, even the loudest ones lowered their eyes. Not in fear, not in guilt, but in something far more rare on a training field, respect. Lisa Carter stood without moving, hands behind her back, boots planted firmly. The sun was higher now, catching the thin layer of sweat on her neck. She still hadn't said a word, but the silence had changed. She was not separated from them this time. It lifted her above them. Colonel Barnes breathed out through his nose, slow and steady, like setting down something heavy. "You think command sent her here?" He looked at the formation again. Soldiers now standing straighter, breathing slower. "You think this was some reassignment, some favor, some pity transfer?" Barnes took a few steps, stopping in front of the unit. Staff Sergeant Lisa Carter had every right to walk away. She had the option of accepting the medical discharge. She could have gone home with honors, with full benefits, and no one would have questioned it. A pause long enough for the weight of those words to sink in. But she didn't. His voice got sharper, not louder, just firmer. She asked to come back. Several soldiers shifted. Reed, the youngest, actually blinked like he'd heard wrong. Not to sit behind a desk. Not to take recruitment photos or write reports. Barnes turned slightly, his eyes landing back on Lisa. She requested the most difficult assignment we have. Field instructor for pre-deployment soldiers. That means you. He didn't need to say the rest. Every person standing there now understood this wasn't some broken soldier trying to hang on. This was a leader who chose to come back to teach the next group. Not with stories, but with scars. Barnes's tone softened, just a little. She didn't return because she had to. She returned because she remembers what happens when training isn't good enough. No one spoke. No one needed to. Because leadership does not always come with awards or celebrations. Sometimes it looks like a woman with bruised arms, a tight jaw, and fire in her silence. And in that moment, the squad no longer saw her as the one who got sent here. She was precisely who she was to them, the volunteer. The one who made it. The one you shut your mouth and learned from. You've got one standing right in front of you, Barnes said. And you didn't even know it. Colonel Barnes's words still echoed when Corporal Morrison walked off the field. Head down, shoulders low, no confidence left. Just silence following him like a long shadow. No one clapped. No one laughed. Also, that was louder than any other sound. Later that evening at 7:30 p.m., the dining hall buzzed with its usual quiet activity. Trays clattered, forks scraped, but something had changed. Nobody laughed too loud. Nobody filled the air with nonsense. And in the back corner, at a table for 6, Staff Sergeant Lisa Carter sat alone. Same posture, same silence, eating slowly, carefully, like someone who didn't expect company and didn't need it. Until one by one they came. No big show, no speeches. Just quiet footsteps, quiet trays. A younger soldier sat down first, then another, then 2 more. None of them said a word. Not sorry, not we were wrong. They just sat, ate, and every few moments their eyes looked her way. Not with pity, not even with guilt, but with recognition. Because now they saw her. Not the wounds, the silence, or the myth. However, the person who failed to break even despite having every reason to do so. The soldier who didn't brag about war stories, didn't demand to be saluted, didn't need to be praised. She earned it quietly, painfully, completely. One of the younger soldiers leaned in a few seats down, barely speaking. Why Ghost 7? She didn't look up from her tray. Didn't change expression. Because I've lost 6 of my teammates, she said, her voice steady. I'm number 7. The table went still. No second question, no follow-up. Just that. And the silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was courteous. Because no one at that table would ever doubt the significance of those words. She wasn't there to impress anyone. She wasn't there for promotions, medals, or stories to tell around the campfire. She was there because that's what real leaders do. Even when it hurts, they return. Even if they are damaged. Even when the body wants to quit and the world says don't bother, they come back. So the next generation knows how to stand. Knows what strength really looks like. Because true strength doesn't need a spotlight. It doesn't yell over the crowd. It doesn't need your applause. It bleeds in silence. It trains without praise. And it stares down cowards until they remember what the word respect actually means. That night, no one made a speech. Lisa never received a thank you note. But they didn't have to. They showed up. They stayed. They took it in. And for the first time since she'd returned to Camp Harrison, she didn't eat alone. This concludes our compelling narrative. How did you feel about Lisa's journey and how much respect she got for keeping quiet and giving up everything? Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who don't need to prove anything. They just show up and do the work. If this story moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe to Secrets in the Silence for more incredible tales of courage, honor, and human strength. Your support helps us continue sharing these inspiring stories. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever met someone whose actions spoke louder than their words? Click on the video you see on the screen for another amazing story, and I'll see you in the next one.